At some point, you were handed a version of your future and you accepted it without reading any of the terms. Now that I've put that out in the open, just think about it for one moment. Maybe it was one of your parents, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a person that you admired so much that their life started to look like a blueprint rather than a biography. Either way, somewhere along the line, somewhere maybe when you were younger, maybe when you were 15, and maybe even who you are right now, some sort of substitution happened through your life. It may have even been quietly, it may have been super loud. However, I believe that it was without any sort of moment that you could point to right now. You stopped moving towards something that you yourself wanted and started moving towards something that would be appreciated or approved of or admired by other people, or even just recognized as success by those whose opinions do not actually matter, yet you decided they matter a lot more in your life than your own even do. The strangest part about that, in my honest opinion, is how it didn't even feel like giving something up. All it felt like was growing up. And that is how that myth, that is how that hold on your life survives. That's how that substitution goes so undetected for so many years and sometimes even decades. It's because taking that safe and approved and validated path, the path that, somebody else already walked and then handed to you as proof as it works. Wow, okay, you can take this path too and you can live my life. It doesn't feel like any sort of surrender when you walk that path. What it feels like is sense. It feels like maturity. It feels like the responsible thing to do with a life that could go so wrong if you're not careful. Because again, this isn't a video game. In this life, if something goes wrong, you may end up homeless. You may end up dead. You may end up with your family not loving you anymore. And these are all horrible things. So why wouldn't you take that safe path? Henry David Thoreau called it a quiet desperation, however. It is the life that looks fine from the outside, yet feels like a slow disappearance from the inside. But there is a second version of this that is much harder to see, and it lives not in the pressure of other people's expectations, but instead in the seduction of other people's lives. What you may have found was someone, online or in a book or in a room, whose path lit something up inside of you, and instead of asking what feeling you were pointing at or what sense of direction you wanted to follow, you started following the person instead. You consumed everything they made and you studied how they got there. You started building in the direction of what they had rather than what you yourself actually wanted. And admiration became navigation, and their dream was what now your destination was. The problem is that admiration is not a compass. What it is a mirror. What you feel when you look at yourself and you look at someone else's work and you compare that and you feel that specific pull. That is not instructions to become them. You should not be misled by that. That is information about yourself, about what you value, and about what kind of life your particular hunger is pointing towards. That feeling belongs to you, and that is it. It should not belong to anyone else. They, as a person, may have been the signpost, but the direction that it points to should be yours. The person that you were admiring should never have been that direction. That person that you were admiring should never have been the destination. Most people, however, will follow that signpost and then move in and follow it to some sort of home as if they can call it their home. Aristotle believed that human beings have a specific nature, that there is something each person is built towards, and each person and each particular form of each person has a flourishing that is theirs, and it is not interchangeable with anyone else's. He called it a eudaimonia, and it was like a deep, specific aliveness of a person operating in accordance with what they actually are. You cannot reach that place through someone else's map. You cannot reach it by following someone else. The map was drawn for your own terrain, and the map they drew was for their own terrain. So obviously you can't follow that. So here is the question that I'm going to ask you, and I want you to genuinely sit with it this time and maybe journal over it, maybe just think about it for a minute or two. And again, it is worth sitting with a lot more than it is just ignoring or moving on quietly and quickly. When you imagine the life that you are building right now, the work and the direction and the thing that you are spending your days every single day building towards and moving towards, whose voice do you hear describing it as something worthwhile? Do you hear your own voice, or do you hear someone whose voice you've been chasing and their approval you've been hunting for, quietly organizing all your choices around? Because there is a version of ambition that is entirely your own. It's all up to you. It is specific to you, and it is shaped by the particular combination of what you love and then what you cannot stop returning to, and what makes time disappear while you are inside of it. That version doesn't need to be validated by a single parent or a single model of something that you want to follow, or maybe a person that you even admire. What it does is exist. What it has is existed for a long, long time. time, and maybe even longer than you've been willing to admit. It should not be a decision that you make once and then move on and you're done with it. It is smaller than that. In my opinion, it is the moment you stop asking yourself whether the direction you're moving in is impressive enough and safe enough and recognizable enough as success, and start asking whether or not it's actually yours that you want to follow. And I don't think it's because it's easy that question covers everything and changes everything, but I think it's because it's the only question that was ever worth answering.